Abstract essay where the essay shape, thought find depth, and every conversation explores the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest. He's a marine, a monk, and a money manager walk into your podcast. Well, now than Mr. Douglas Lynam, and of course, an author too, and the author of the books Taming Your Money Monster and From Monk to Money Manager. No other than, well, Mr. Douglas Lynam. Welcome, Mr. Douglas, on Abstract Essay. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Well, thank you. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for having me on the show. Yeah, as you mentioned, I started off in the Marine Corps. I went to officer candidate school with the Marines. I graduated top of my class. And then I realized that unresolved anger issues and high explosives were a bad combination. So
Mm-hmm.
I turned my commission down. I left the Marines and I went and became a Benedictine monk. And it was trying to escape the world of money and materialism forever. Thought I was going to get away from that. And it was also a wonderful way to really annoy my parents. So it was,
I know your parents. Okay.
and so so I thought the monastic life was going to get me out of this money thing forever. But then, in an ironic twist of fate, the monastery went bankrupt a few years after I arrived because turned out we all hated dealing with money, and I guess we took the vow of poverty a little too seriously. But we all had what I now call these money monsters, these unhealthy, avoidant relationships to money. And I ended up having to be the one who dug the community out of bankruptcy. For a while, it was kind of like the blind leading the broke. I didn't really know what I was doing, but at least the bar was set so low I couldn't do a worse job than the person who came before me. And so I did that, and then I started helping monastery guests with their financial troubles. I realized that their spiritual problems often had a financial problem lurking behind it. And if I could help them with their financial issues, I could often make their lives a whole lot better. That they would ask me to pray for them, which I do, but it turns out making a budget would work a little bit better most of the time. So I then, after 20 years in the monastery, I kind of got a little tired. Realized that I could be more of service to the world by taking the skills I learned out into the wild west and the wild world, and I became an investment advisor. So I wrote these two books, and now I'm a business coach and an investment advisor, helping people build wealth and build a healthier relationship with their money.
We love that, Mr. Douglas, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and what's going to the world. So let's start with the core metaphor, money monster. How do you define this concept, and why is understanding our personal monsters the first step to any real financial peace?
Well, it's complicated. So there's this really interesting personality system called the Enneagram. And Enneagram, it's a big fancy word, but it's really simple in what it means. So Ennea in ancient Greek, it means nine, and
Mm.
gram means drawn. So the Enneagram is these nine archetypes of personality. We kind of draw them on a circle. Think of a color wheel. If you were to draw a color wheel and divide it up into nine pie slices, these are sort of the archetypal ways that a personality can be formed, and it's based on childhood developmental psychology as well as neurobiology, which is what I think the my book really took the Enneagram kind of out of the woo woo space and really digs into the why it works, not just how it works. So the how is a little complicated, and I said you have to kind of dig into the biology of it. But essentially, there's these nine patterns. And each pattern, what's important about it is that each type has there's these nine types, and each one has is an ego structure, or the way your ego is formed to help protect you from reality and keep it. It's a healthy thing. It's good to have. We need an ego. It can obviously cause problems when it gets too out of control, but essentially, your core of your ego structure was designed to protect you from the greatest threats in your childhood environment. And with your ego structure, wherever you land on the Enneagram, it kind of comes with your own sort of greatest sort of surprise, which is your greatest unconscious fear. So it turns out each of us has a deep unconscious fear that we're trying to avoid, to prevent that fear from coming true. And a lot of our personality, a lot of our behaviors, our motivations, our desires are sort of focused around avoiding this core fear. And then that creates our money monsters, because what happens is then I sort of layer on top of that what I call the attachment theory of money, which is almost identical to the attachment theory of relationships. If any of your listeners are familiar with that, if they're not, then basically it's pretty simple. The way it works is, um, when we have an unhealthy relationship to money, we can either be anxiously attached to it. If you think of like Ebenezer Scrooge, or there's the TV show Succession or Billions, where people who their desire for wealth creates a lot of suffering for themselves and the world around them. Or the other flip side of that, are people who are money avoidant, people who hate dealing with money. They unconsciously push it away, or they resist it, or they hate doing their bills, or paying their taxes, or building up their careers, or the things we need to do to have a successful financial life, because they unconsciously push money away. So that creates these two money monsters for each of these nine personality types, and they can show up in different parts of our financial life, whether it's earning or saving or investing or giving. Like there's different, we might be healthy in one part of our financial life, but be unhealthy and have this money monster kind of rear its head when we're stressed out, or, whenever life throws us sideways. So that's a quick overview of what they are. And that's a very fast explanation, but happy to dive into that deeper if you've got questions.
Hmm. So, Mr. Douglas, your journey from monk to money manager is fascinating. What is the biggest shock to your system when you move from life to deliberately poverty to the world of personal finance? How did that shift refrain your definition of wealth?
Well, that's a good question. So I think the biggest shock was just leaving behind, all of my community. So when you're in a monastery, it's your family, it's your friends, it's your job, it's your religion, it's sort of your whole structure. So I had to kind of leave everything I knew behind and start a new life out into the world. And so everything was a shock. Dating was a shock. Just living alone for the first time in 20 years was a shock. Um, you know, it was a very difficult transition. I have to say, those first few years out of the monastery were quite challenging, and it had a lot of struggles that went with it. But I was, glad to be able to get through that with the help of family and friends, and really build up a life that I'm really happy to have right now today.
So tell us, Mr. Dog, you advocate to becoming a little bit wealthy and why that is okay. This is a refreshingly modest goal. How do you define a little bit wealthy and why is it aiming to for this actually more transformative than chasing extreme riches?
I think there's a limit where you chase wealth to a point where, money doesn't, we know money doesn't buy happiness. It does provide security, and it can prevent suffering. And so you want to have at least a little bit of wealth, so you can have enough so that you can take care of yourself, take care of your family, and also give back, provide for your community. I don't think there's anything wrong with building up a significant wealth either. It's just a matter of, that can become an unhealthy obsession as well if you're not careful. So it's about being able to have enough money that you can use your wealth so that you can live a life that makes your soul sing, and live a life of meaning and purpose, so that you can kind of give back to the world, and really have the resources to fix the crack in the world that you were born to fix. So that requires, now maybe the crack in the world that you want to fix is really huge, and that might require a huge amount of money. More power to you, but maybe not so much just accumulating wealth just for the sake of of having a lot of ego strokes. That probably isn't going to be the happiest life you can live. Plenty of billionaires who commit suicide, and plenty of famous celebrities do the same when they realize that their money has to be in service of a higher purpose, not just for your own self-aggrandizement.
Mm. Let's talk about the scarcity versus abundance mindset. How can someone who genuinely does not have enough money right now avoid the trap of a scarcity mentality that keeps them stuck?
Yeah, that's a hard one. And so part of it is it depends on why are you stuck. So that's what's so useful about the Enneagram is it can help you figure out where is that scarcity, what's the root origin of that scarcity mindset for you. What is that fear that's driving you in your particular money mindset, and how do you overcome it? So I think the problem around that is it's not a one size fits all problem. It really does depend on where you're at. And for some people, it's, they don't have, they need to level up their skill set. They don't have a service or a skill or a talent that the market is going to reward. So they're stuck in the low end job living paycheck to paycheck. So they might need to level up their skill set first before they're going to be able to command a higher wage or get that better job. But once you realize that wealth is not finite, there is no point where the stock market is going to top out because all the money is used up. The that we live in a generative economy that has no limit on the wealth that you can produce for yourself and the earning potential that you have, but you still have to have some sort of talent, skill, or service that the market's going to reward. And so the question is finding that niche for yourself and being able to find those opportunities are abundant and there's no scarcity of opportunity. The scarcity might be maybe in your ability to seek out and attract those opportunities or have the skills to capitalize on them.
Mr. Douglas, can you share a story of a client who had profound aha moment when they saw the Enneagram types pattern in their financial life? What was the behavioral shift that
Oh,
followed?
yeah. Well, I had this one client who was an Enneagram type 2. And what that means is they're often called the helper. And type twos, what they tend to be very kind and very warm and very generous, but they tend to have a problem with um, giving too much. They have this compulsive need to be helpful for others because they're running on an unconscious fear that they're not lovable. So they think they're not lovable, and so they're always trying to help other people or compliment or flatter people or um, be of service. 'Cause I think if I help you, you're going to tell me how wonderful I am, and that's then going to validate me and assuage this inner insecurity I have. But the problem is there's no amount of praise or validation that's ever enough. So they tend to the money monster was is an avoidant money monster for this type two, which I call the bleeder. So the bleeder money monster is someone who's always bleeding out their time and their talent and their treasure serving other people, and that tends to leave them depleted in terms of their energy level for themselves and even their financial resources for themselves. And this person had realized they'd spent their whole life, doing everything for other people, but then wasn't doing enough to take care of herself. And so in this particular case, she had to like stop enabling her children who were just she was pouring money into her adult children all the time and they were using her. And then she needed to actually stop like you know doing all the bake sales and doing all some of those things are great, but she was completely exhausted and running on empty emotionally and financially. And so it was really for her was this aha, like all this giving, all of this running around, all these acts of service, while noble in their pursuit and on the surface look great, and are things that maybe the rest of us should be doing more of, right? But in her case, it was trying to feed this deep unconscious psychological wound that was never going to be healed through external validation. She needed to find that internally inside herself first and find the internal peace so that when she did give, it was from a place of genuine generosity, not from a place of neediness, not with strings attached, not a kind of it was a kind of conditional love, like I'll do this for you, but then you got to love me back. And it was that pay to play that game that she was always engaged in that was causing all this resentment in her because when people didn't give her the love and affection back that she wanted, didn't reciprocate her generosity to the level she expected, and would create all this kind of friction in her relationships and in her finances. So that was a big aha moment for her and helped her find a real lot of a much better place emotionally, materially, and spiritually.
Mr. Douglas, what is the biggest resistance you hear when introducing the idea of a money monster or the psychology of money? How do you help people move past and believe that is just a math and willpower?
Yeah, so a lot of times, we know what to do. It's just sometimes we don't know. It, Financial fitness is not that different in many respects than physical fitness. Like, we know we should go to the gym, we should exercise, we know we should save more for retirement, we should, invest more, we should build up our savings and all these things, and we should budget more effectively. But all the tips for what to do are sometimes hard to implement until you know why you have this emotional resistance to doing it. And so really it's about managing your emotions around your money as much as it is around doing the math. And if you can help people through, now there's, again, it depends on your Enneagram type, is going to, the specific practices that you need to focus on are all laid out in my book, Taming Your Money Monster. And if anyone out there would like some financial coaching and would like me to work with them on this, I'd be happy to tailor a customized, package for you to help you get your finances or your businesses in shape. But it comes down fundamentally to three core practices in general, which would be contemplation, sort of thinking deeply and meditating deeply on where you're at and kind of why and how you got to where you are. And then the next step is compassion, having compassion for yourself and for the even the people who've wounded you, that kind of put you in this situation, yourself and others. And then finding out what's that appropriate action, what's the next steps you need to take to really move forward with grace and dignity into a healthier financial future.
Mr. Douglas, for the person who feels completely defined by their money struggles, buried in debt, feeling constant shame, how do you help them separate their self worth from their net worth as the first step?
Well, yeah, I think what helps is to have whatever, is have some spiritual grounding in whatever tradition or practice resonates for you. So whether you're Buddhist, Christian, Hindu, Muslim, Jewish, agnostic, but whether it's yoga, whether it's nature, is finding some way to ground yourself and connect deeply with your spirit, soul, source, however you want to define that for you. And really it's a understanding that your net worth is never going to heal your sense of self-worth, that you need to find a way to find that inner resource for yourself, that inner connection. I would say the way I frame it is seeing yourself as a fractal piece of the divine. And if you can tap into that through meditation, through contemplation, through prayer, and then you can really heal that shame or anxiety inside of yourself, so that then money, you're not looking for that validation of your self-worth through your net worth.
Mr. Douglas, and an author, what are your short term and long term goals?
My short-term goals are to have a very good sleep tonight. um, um my short term, and also to I would love to bring on some more coach. I have three more coaching spots available for this month. If anyone is out there would like some help with their finances, you can find me at Doug. My website is my name, DougLynam.com, DougLynam.com. So there's three coaching sessions spots available for this month. That would be another short-term goal. It would be to fill those up with people who could use some financial help. And my long-term goal is always is to be of love and service to a suffering world. How can I use my time, my talents, and my tools to alleviate suffering in people's lives?
Good luck to your goals, Mr. Douglas, and looking forward for more success. And what will be a piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
Don't.
Don't. Why not?
Oh, no. Well, what's going on inside this head is, well, I mean, depends on which ways you want to be like me, I guess is the question.
Yes.
Be more specific. I don't think anyone, I think everyone's unique. I don't think anyone could be like me, should be like me, or would want to be like me. It's definitely a roller coaster inside this brain of mine.
Okay. So, how about the people who want to be an author?
An author, well, have something to say. That's the hard part. Like, what do you have to say that is unique, that is of service to the world? And how can you say it in a way that's entertaining so that people want to read it? So, a lot of brilliant people out there with some brilliant ideas, but they don't know how to convey those ideas in an entertaining way. And there's a lot of authors who are very entertaining, but they don't have anything to say. And so the books are sort of fluff. And it's like, okay, so you need to find a way to bring those two things together, and now you've got a book that you can take to market and monetize.
Mm-hmm. Plus, they're procrastinating too. So, thank you for that inspiring advice, Mr. Douglas. So, can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
That influenced me.
Yeah,
Um,
please.
well, I would say The Pensées by Blaise Pascal, sort of a old time classic. These are sort of, I'll give you some old books and I'll give you some new books. Old books would be Blaise
Okay.
Pascal, The Pensées, The Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky, uh, essays by Michel Montaigne. Those are the old ones. And then some newer ones, I would say um, Universal Christ by Father Richard Rohr, 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson, and I'll leave it at that. Those would be my top choices.
Well, thank you for the recommended books. So, Mr. Douglas, in a culture obsessed with more, how do you help people define enough? How does anagram inform what enough looks like for a different types?
Well, again, we'd have to go through all of the 9 types to answer that question, but enough is like, okay, do I have enough where I don't need to be worried about my long-term financial future? Like in it, can I have a decent can I sustain my lifestyle prudently without living a lavish lifestyle, um, and have my basic needs covered and those of the people I love? I think that's enough. Like that's enough. Like you have enough to, you can feed yourself, you can clothe yourself, you can afford medical care, you can afford a good vacation once in a while. I think that's the basics of enough. And then beyond that, it's being able to have more. Anything above that is like, now this becomes something I can use to really make a difference in other people's lives.
Yes, definitely make a
And maybe
difference.
that's as simple as enough that you have enough to give back to others. Like when you've crossed that threshold where I can give and it's not depleting my ability to care for myself and my loved ones, enough is like having that extra, my cup, you know, poureth over, and now I can pour out into others because my own cup is full.
Definitely enough to give others.
Mhm.
So, what is the financial virtue like patience, prudence, or courage that is particularly difficult for modern individuals to cultivate? How do we build that muscle?
Which muscle exactly? I'm sorry.
Well, the prudence,
Prudence,
courage,
courage,
and
all those virtues.
patience.
Okay, well, this ties right into the Enneagram because now what it turns out is each type has a greatest vice, a particular vice that they tend to struggle with. Maybe it's gluttony, maybe it's lust, maybe it's avarice or pride, and then each type has a corresponding virtue or that they need to be a highest virtue that they need to be practicing or trying to reach. So really, it's what's so exciting. What I'm so proud of in my new book, Taming Your Money Monster, is I've laid out the ego map for each of the 9 Enneagram type. So once you know your type, there's a detailed map, of what your shadows from a sort of a Jungian perspective, what your shadow structure is for your personality type, and then what your path to enlightenment or spiritual wholeness is for your type. And so it really is very, very much Enneagram type dependent what that path for you is and how you cultivate those virtues.
Mm, yes, definitely. So before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in a sixth season, abstract poetry in third season, and of course my book 101 review in its sixth season as well. Comedy 101 in the third season, and my food 101 in sixth season as well. Geography 101, Love Letters, Movie 101, Review, Music 101, our fifth season, Science 101, Sex 101, fourth season, Trivia 101, Law 101, Mental Health 101, Motivation 101, Entrepreneurship 101, and Bible Verses 101 are my baby podcasts. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Douglas, to close, let's envision the finish line. Beyond the healthier bank account, what is the true freedom or peace that becomes possible when someone times their money monster and walk their path to mastery?
Well, then the greatest thing about it is once you tame your money monster and you find your path to mastery within your type, what it does is it means overcoming your greatest unconscious fear, which then means fulfilling your greatest unconscious hope. So it once you do this, it allows you to fulfill that greatest hope inside of you and fully live your unique purpose. Like, what's the special purpose I think that God put each of us on this planet to fulfill? You start to live that purpose more fully, and then your life becomes richer, more meaningful, and much more joyful. And so, um, and then yeah, and that's really where we want people to be able to live, is that highest level of your own spirituality, and to tie that with your money, so that your money, which is a tool for action in the world, and your highest virtues align so you can live your highest purpose.
Well, Mr. Douglas, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite the listeners to support your books, your advocacy, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Yeah, so check out my book, Taming Your Money Monster, 9 Paths to Money Mastery with the Enneagram. And also my earlier book is From Monk to Money Manager, a former monk's financial guide to becoming a little bit wealthy and why that's okay. And also check me out my website at douglynam.com for financial coaching, financial help, or help with investment advisory services.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Douglas Lynam, because if you support him for sure, more and more empowering money monster. Right. So, Mr. Doug, I have one more question. So, how should our approach to money and our Enneagram path influence how we talk about money with our partners or children?
Yes, well, it's so important. It's so huge. Well, first you got to know your Enneagram type, and then when you know what their Enneagram type is, the conversation gets much more interesting because you know what their triggers are. And so when you know what their triggers are and your triggers are, you can sort of figure out how to have a healthier conversation around money. You'll believe me, it will take your relationship with your partner and your spouse or your significant other to the whole next level. Once you start knowing their Enneagram type, everything in your relationship will make a whole lot more sense, including how you relate to finances and the fights you have around it.
Yes, people, let's support again Mr. Douglas, because if you support him, more money monster will produce. So, Mr. Douglas, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel. Great show. Appreciate you having me back as a guest.
Definitely, I'm inviting you to be my guest on Book 101 review. And let's talk about something good. More to come, people. See you soon.